Hello and welcome to Experts Live UK Community Voices. This series is all about the people behind the Microsoft community, their stories and how they got where they are today. In each episode, I sit down with speakers, experts and community leaders from across the Microsoft ecosystem to talk about their journey, how they got started, the challenges they faced and ultimately what led them to where they are today. So whether you're just starting out in your career in tech or you're deep into it, the goal here is to share real stories and real lessons and experiences from the real community. But luckily today, unlike with our last episode, I'm not alone. I have co-host of Mr. Geoff Ross. So welcome, Geoff. How are you doing?
Hello, Bruce. Yes, sorry I missed you last time, but great to be here today. Thanks for having me. Awesome to host with
That's
you again.
okay. I was scared and I was cold and I was lonely, but don't worry, I survived. It's all
I'm
good.
sure you managed absolutely fine and got on a bit better, you could argue.
Right. Yeah.
It's quite all right. It's all good. Well, it's really good to have you with me, Geoff. But we're not alone. It's not just the two of us. We also have a very special guest joining us. All of our guests, of course, are all very special. But today's guest is extra special because he's here in front of me, and that's Mr. Lee Ford. Lee, you're a developer, a development lead, and an MVP. So welcome to the show, and let's get started. Welcome. How are you doing, Lee?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's sunny for once, so that's always a good sign. No, all good. All good on my side.
All good. Yes. Almost all, I'm sure, of our listeners are going to be in the UK, so they'll be able to sympathise with the constant cold and drizzle and whatnot that we've been facing.
Yeah, they'll know exactly when we recorded this because it'll be the one sunny day in the previous few weeks.
So that must be the 17th of March.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow it's rain all day. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope not, but probably.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess a good place to start is if you could introduce yourself, Lee, in your own words. Tell us a bit about yourself.
My name's Lee. I am a developer, mainly in the Microsoft world. I've been doing this for many years now, in various sort of wearing various hats. But sort of within sort of the Microsoft ecosystem, probably like 20 years now. So various different products, various different roles. But for the last sort of almost 10 years, I suspect it's mainly been more around Teams and extensibility and M365 rather than the other things that I've been doing before that.
Makes sense. So that is something I really want to kind of dig into. So I'm from a software engineering background, regular sort of straight up software engineering. So I've got no idea what it looks like to develop for M365 and Teams versus what greenfield software engineering. So what is the difference there? What does that look like in practice?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I mean, fundamentally, if you're a developer, really, I think you've got similar skill set. So you can kind of if you've never touched a Microsoft product before, you could probably build something with Microsoft tools tomorrow. Generally, it's using certain tools, certain frameworks, certain software, obviously connecting to certain types of products. So, for example, if you want to build a Teams app, obviously you have to use the Teams toolkit or some Teams frameworks. You can't just write your own thing in whatever language you want and expect it to work. So I think that's where if you're calling someone a Microsoft or an M365 developer, it means that they're building tools for a particular platform. But ultimately, a lot of the same rules apply. You still need to know, at least one programming language. You still need to be able to, handle DevOps and all the sort of software development skills that you probably need to succeed. I think they kind of broadly apply across a lot of that. And, we've hired people that weren't, Microsoft 365 aligned, just sort of developers, and it's not that difficult to kind of take it on. Once you're a developer, I think it's you give someone some documentation or so a pointer, go have a look at this bit of code. It's pretty intuitive, I think, to pick up and just become an M365 developer if that's what you wanted to do.
Okay. Is that quite uniquely like that? If you sort of want to be a Microsoft developer, you have to kind of work with the Microsoft tools and frameworks, or is that whatever you're working on, you've got to
I
work within
think
those kind
that,
of frameworks.
yeah, no. I think it's pretty similar, to be honest with you. So if let's say I was building an app and then I decided actually, I want to put it in a competitor. I don't. Microsoft, you're listening. But ultimately, yeah, I think it's largely the same. A lot of the documentation for lots of different products and vendors, they obviously are trying to help developers as much as they can. So they want to make the on ramp as easy as they can. So it's typically, yeah, I do find that yeah, that if for whatever reason you need to build something outside of the Microsoft world, and I think I tend to have my Microsoft blinkers on and don't really realize that there are there's Google and Amazon, or they also have very similar products and similar dev platforms, but obviously we don't generally tend to use them. But I think largely it is fairly similar, I would say.
That makes sense. And so, kind of like following on from that, like what does a typical day look like for you as a developer at Symmetry, where you are?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it has changed in the last few years. There's a lot of different products out there. So, typically, it's building things, in Teams, or maybe like web apps that are hosted in Azure that have some M365 capability attached to them. And now I think with things like Copilot and AI in general, it has shifted maybe towards that a little bit more. So we are seeing building of agents, or building of using AI models in tools that didn't have them before. I would say day to day as a developer, there's never 2 days that are the same. As a general rule, we seem to be doing more of those sort of engagements or projects, rather than necessarily just sort of quote unquote standard app development, let's call it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Lots of sort of interesting variety, I'm sure. So that's sort of today. So how did you get started? Take us back to the beginning. How did you get into
How
your
long have we
career?
got? So I left school about. I stayed on for my A levels, but I didn't finish them. I was like, I've had enough of education at this point. So I just sort of looked for apprenticeships nearby, and came across one for in sort of communications in telephony, and I started, effectively applied for the job, got the apprenticeship. At 17, about 17, and just kind of went on from there. And telephony turned into networking turned into Windows servers, and Windows servers then turned into things like Link and Skype for Business and OCS, and then things like Teams and M365. So it's just been a general kind of, and now Copilot, a general transition from one kind of product to the other, but they've never been like a complete 180. Okay, I'm going to do something completely different. Now it's always been like they kind of, the paths meet just enough for you to hop across to the other side, and then go, okay, cool, this is what I'm doing now. So yeah, I mean, that was, without aging myself too badly, I think I was, yeah, 17, and I'm 41 now. So yeah, I've been doing it a while, but more Microsoft, mostly Microsoft, should I say, within that time period, but lots of different products.
So was it a sort of conscious choice to sort of start and pick something that, like telephony, audio and video kind of related, or was that just how it kind of happened?
Yeah.
Speaking.
So when I started, when I was 17, obviously I didn't really have. I had my GCSEs, but I didn't have anything more than that. So I looked, and there was ones like a coach building, buses and things like that. So I was always quite hands-on and liked doing, woodworking and metalwork and things like that at school. But also, I was everyone has the computer guy, right? My computer's not working, or bring it round to Lee, he'll be able to fix it. So I was generally that person. Or anyone remember LAN parties? You'd have a LAN party where you'd all bring computers in one, in a town hall or something like that, or a village hall, and set those sort of things up, and so you kind of learned a lot of communications and networking and how computers work just by doing those as a hobby. as a teenager. And so then when this particular job came up, I was like, well, hang on a minute, this is kind of, I'm already doing a lot of this already. Let's, see if I can make a career out of it. And so there wasn't really any general like, I'm not going to uni because I'm going to go do an apprenticeship in X, Y, and Z. It was more just I don't want to go to school anymore, and let's see what is there out, what is out there, and if not, worst case, I can always go back to school if I don't find anything. So that's what
And
happened.
I'm of a similar vintage to you. There was plenty of stuff out there at the time to kind of get you into tech at those stages. I could definitely empathise with the whole LAN party experience.
Oh yes.
It's a great introduction to computing.
Listeners of this won't know what a LAN party is. They'll have to Google it, I think. Yeah.
And then, Lee, when do you kind of, consider yourself a Microsoft IT professional? Like, when did you sort of start to specialize? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you've used Microsoft your whole career, but like as an actual like speciality in
Yeah, I would
delivering.
say like the early 2010s. So we're talking like, sort of a lot of, like to begin with, like I say, it was a lot of server, a lot of, domain admin stuff like that. So yeah, it was the early 2010s really. It's when I was like, okay, telephony really isn't doing it for me, and I don't think it's going to be. Yeah, obviously, it's still around today, but not the way it was, way back now. Everyone has a mobile phone. People don't need phones on desks. They have Teams and Slack and whatever. So I could kind of, I wasn't like some oracle that could see this is what was going to happen, and I jumped at the right time. It just was a natural transition where, yeah, I was like, this is what I want to do. So
And how much did your employers need for your skills kind of set that course? Was that a case of they need it, there's a good opportunity for me, I'm going to start looking at sort of links kind of for business teams, whichever incarnation we're talking about, versus you proactively going like, I want to focus on that. Employer, make me opportunities to do that thing, please.
yeah, it was kind of, so a lot of it was, we want to see what it is. We want to see what other options are out there when it comes to products, and not necessarily competitors, but how can we do this in addition to what we already do. And generally, because I was maybe one of the younger ones and a bit more kind of um, didn't have all the sort of quote unquote baggage from doing telephony for so many years, it was still fairly new to me. So the jump wasn't quite as big. So when there was like, anyone want to put their hand up and let's have a look into this sort of thing, or I was kind of banging the table to get involved on that really. And part of that was sort of when I was really into it. I was like, okay, that's great, but I think where I currently was at that time, and it's like I need to go somewhere else where I'm going to do more of this, and that's what kind of spurred me on to move companies at that point to kind of probably concentrate on it as a full-time thing.
That makes sense. So I guess, there's some leap between sort of learning stuff and then being willing to kind of share what you've learned. So I know you have a blog, lee-ford.co.uk.
Rolls off
How
the
did
tongue.
you sort
Yeah.
of go about exactly? It's in my show notes. How could I possibly forget? Including the hyphen, it's important. It won't work without the hyphen. How did you sort of get going with blogging? Was it a blog that came first? What was your first way of sharing your knowledge rather than simply
Yeah, so
consuming?
yeah, the first way was probably, yeah, blogging mainly, because one, it's I really did used to struggle with, getting up in front of people and talking about things. So a blog is, a bit like people that like to leave comments on Reddit and YouTube. It's very easy to kind of just throw it out there and not have to worry too much about having to deal with people. So I had helped, the sort of people that blogged before me, I guess, they'd helped me massively throughout my career. So as I was, maybe finding something that someone hadn't found, or passing on some knowledge that I thought, hang on a minute, this is worth writing something about. So it was about 10 or so years ago I started my blog, and it even now it's been sort of, sometimes I might have 3 or 4 blog posts in a month, and then I might not do anything for 6 months or 9 months. But it is something that I do like to do. It's, I think, like a lot of things like building session slides, there's a lot more effort that goes into it than you possibly might think. So writing a blog post that might take 5 minutes to read, and guarantee you it's probably taken 10, 20, 30 times that amount of time to actually write it, or certainly the ones that I have anyway. But I did have this was like when I first started. My kids were either very young or weren't born yet, so I had a bit more free time, and then yeah, since then, being a father, it's not quite as easy to kind of go right. I'm going to spend 4 hours tonight writing a blog post, so it's harder to fit these things in, but I still do enjoy doing it. It's yeah, it's just finding the time.
I understand. I have small kids. It's a balance to make it all work.
Exactly. Yes.
So you talk about sort of speaking for the first time, and when did you get started with speaking, following on from the blog? And how frequently do you do it now? I see a Cloud Tech Thailand t-shirt on as a good example of something
Yes.
you clearly spoke out recently.
Yeah. So to be honest, it was around the same time, and it wasn't any great impetus that okay, I must speak in front of people. There was a local PowerShell community in Birmingham, which is where I live, um, and there was people can just register and we bring a session with them. So I was like, okay, let me see how I get on. So I made a session. I kind of, and the venue, to say it was like a boardroom, it was like that was overselling it. It was like a round table, really. It was maybe 10 people in the room, but I was so nervous because I hadn't done it before, and even at school, you stand up front of your class. That could be nerve wracking, but you know everyone in the room, whereas you're talking to 10 people that you've never met before. But yes, that was probably around the same time. We're talking about 10 or so years ago, I'd say.
So what was the prompt then? Because you're right, it is a nerve-wracking experience to give my first time of sort of speaking. What sort of drove you to do it?
I think just seeing other people out there that I'm like, hang on a minute, these if why aren't I doing this as well? Like I could also share my knowledge outside, because obviously within the company you do that you work for, obviously you're already sharing that knowledge and helping people. I was like, well, hang on a minute, I could also do that to others as well, and it's no extra thing really to spend a few hours and create a session and help however many people you can spreading that knowledge or that input. So I was just like, I'll give it a try, and if I don't like it, then I don't have to do it again. And thankfully, even though it was a nerve-wracking experience, and I can remember being maybe they couldn't see it on the outside, but I was physically shaking on the inside. But it really did. I really did enjoy it, but it didn't feel like it at the time.
Well done for
Does
doing
it
it.
does it get easier the more you do it? You've been doing it 10 years.
Oh yeah, for sure. And maybe that's not for everyone, but I do find that now I don't really think about it. I just get up, and people talk about the sort of, you need to have have a before you go on stage, you need to go and have a quick nip to the toilet or anything like that. But even then, I don't have that anymore. I just go straight on, and I'm ready to go. So, but yeah, I think to begin with, I think where the fear came from was, you know, am I an imposter? Do I actually know what I'm talking about? Is someone going to go, well, actually, you're wrong on this thing that you've just mentioned? You know, feeling like you're kind of putting yourself out there for critique, and maybe there is some of that sometimes, but actually once you've done it a few times, you'll actually, you know what, I can do this, and people do seem to enjoy it, and I do get good feedback, so maybe it's something that I am good at and I should carry on doing. So I think that does help allay the nerves.
Yeah, and now you say it the way you just described it as well. You just turn up. I've actually witnessed that from you, Lee. I remember Comsverse last year, and I'm still, I don't speak very often, so I'm still very much not go to the toilet once, but like 3 times,
Yes.
and get everything prepped and double prepped, and I've got my slides like ready to go on my laptop like the night before, and I like don't even touch the laptop, in the morning
Yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. A charger and a backup charger and a backup laptop and all that. And I remember in this session of Converse, you just turned up got your laptop out your bag, didn't plug it in, no power, just cracked on with it. I was like, yes, okay, this is another level.
This is
Yeah, I mean,
another level.
yeah, I was going to say part of that is just maybe I'm too relaxed sometimes. And, as you know, some of our co-speakers over the years will probably say, you're maybe a bit too laid back and a bit too lackadaisical. But I think it's yeah, there's probably a balance between me and you, Jeff, where we only take one charger, we don't need two chargers, and only one, maybe one toilet break or something.
No, I think, in general, people are looking for the genuine you, whatever that is, right? I
Yes,
don't think you can be too anything. If you're being yourself, then you're
exactly.
being
Yes,
the right thing people are looking for.
Agreed.
absolutely.
I think it comes down to knowing your subject, and once you know your subject, you know the questions you might get, and if you don't, be able to go, that's fine. I don't know the answer to that question. I will find out and get back to you. Somebody really recently, possibly Steve Weiner, gave us exactly that advice. So, which leads nicely on to my kind of next question. So, to anyone sort of thinking about getting started with sort of speaking, what advice would you give to them?
I would say speak to people that have done it before, get some advice. There are some mentorship, speaking mentorship programs out there as well. If you look around on LinkedIn, you will find them. And these are great at people that maybe want to speak but feel like it's something that they're not capable of doing, or don't think they will be good at it. And I think in most cases, I don't think, being completely honest here, I don't think I've ever been to a session and thought this person, sometimes you can tell people have nerves, but that doesn't detract from the content or how good the session was. So I think it's just people, yeah, I think if they were coming to me for advice, I'd say, look, yeah, don't, I'd definitely do it. Even if you only, like, say, when I did my first session, I didn't know if this was a one-time thing, and I'd be like, I hate this, I'm never doing it again. But I thought, well, I'll give it a try, and what's the worst that can happen? Well, turns out not a lot.
Yeah.
Even if people come to your session and don't engage with it, that there will probably be 10 other people that did. So you can't please everyone. You can't cover everything that you want to cover in your session. So I think it's just, my advice would be reach out to people that have done it before. They will be able to give you some advice or be able to point you towards help, or the people that might be similarly aligned with what you're talking about. Maybe you could do a co-speaking session. That's definitely something also that helps. I remember when I first started, I did a co-speaking session many years ago, and it all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is like not necessarily a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, but it did feel like the weight was being evenly distributed. So if you did trip up or you forgot about something, one of your slides, the other person's probably there then to pick up your slack, and it works both ways. And yeah, I think that's also something I'd recommend.
Awesome. I guess you don't know till you try, right? Well, any way to find out if you like it is to dive
Exactly.
in. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what I did with that first session, where I was like, I don't know if this is the right thing, but I'm going to try it anyway. And I wish, to be honest with you, I wish I'd tried it sooner. I think that'd be my only regret on that one.
That's definitely a regret I have myself. I didn't get started or force myself to do it more frequently. All really good tips as well, thank you. And on a similar kind of related theme, of course, we're very pleased to announce that you'll be speaking at Experts Live UK in June, on the 11th and 12th of June, to be very specific. What's your
Yeah.
session?
So I've got the official title because it's a bit of a mouthful here. So it is Architecting Multi-Agent Solutions in Copilot Studio and M365 Agents Toolkit. So it's not just me. I'm doing it with Reshmi, who's been on this podcast before. And it goes back to the co-speaking thing. I think when you co-speak with someone, you can I think it can make the session easier for both of you, but also you can give your own opinions on each side of the. So in our case, we've got Agents Toolkit on one side and we've got Copilot Studio on the other, and we're going to go through effectively how to build each agent in each product. Should I say how to build an agent in each product, and then layer on the orchestration and the multi-agent capabilities of each, and pitfalls and where to use what. So we've got a deep dive session. So I think is it 90 minutes? from a right.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah,
about
90
right.
minutes.
Yes.
We've got that's going to be a record for me on a session. I usually have to cut content, so this one I'll probably have to add more than I would normally deliver. So that's actually really good
You
because
might even need a laptop charger, Lee,
I will need my laptop
to
charge for
get
that
through the
one. Yeah,
distance.
exactly.
Just
90
one
minutes.
day. Just one.
Yeah, just one. Yeah. But no, absolutely. I'm really excited to. We've already started making plans on this one. So even though it's a few months away, it's something we're really excited to get started on.
That's really good to hear.
I'm looking forward to that session in particular, and it's just great to welcome both you and Reshmi back.
Yes.
Speaking again, you guys both spoke at Experts Live UK 2025,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's just brilliant to have you returning.
That was a good venue as well. I
Agreed.
liked the cricket the cricket out the back. That was good.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really fun, and we've obviously outgrown that as we're growing this year,
Mm.
but we've got another really cool venue. It's a dedicated tech event space.
Awesome.
It's all kind of tech themed, all the room naming and stuff like that. So yeah, a
The
really
great-
fun venue that we've got for you guys this year as well.
Yeah,
Can't wait.
the thing I'm sort of hoping from a dedicated tech events space is that everything will just work. All the projectors will work, the internet will work for the number of people, all that kind of stuff. I'm just hoping will work because that's always the risk when you go somewhere a bit more interesting that it just doesn't work. But yeah, it's really good to have you back. And I would also say on the workshop format in general, the hope is that those of you listening out there who obviously attend, and please do, I recommend you to do so. You can get the attendees engaged basically, and it becomes a lot more informal and some great sort of questions and engagement from the audience, so you can get your questions answered rather than just listening and being soaking in the content, which is really cool. So I'm going to switch gears ever so slightly. So along with most of our speakers, it seems you're an MVP. How did that kind of come to be? Was that something you were seeking out, or did it happen as an accident along the way?
Yeah, it was an organic thing, really. Like I say, I started blogging 2016, something like that. That's when I properly sort of put my name out there, really. Before that, I was just a nobody, I guess. And it wasn't something I was aiming for, or even kind of knew about to begin with. To be honest with you, I think what I noticed was when you'd be going on other people's blogs, looking at to fix problems, and there'd be like an MVP badge on there. Like, what's that? So I didn't really put too much thought into it, and then sort of around 2019 or something like that, an MVP reached out to me and said, "Have you thought about being an MVP?" And I was like, "No, not really." So they put my name forwards, and yeah, that was, I think, just at Christmas 2019. My first MVP summit was going to be the one that got cancelled because of COVID. So yeah, it was a few years ago now, thankfully. But no, it was by accident, and I have I haven't really thought about it too much since. Really, I kind of just keep doing what I want to do when I want to do it, and I don't really have that burning pressure that I think maybe some MVPs speak about, where they were like, "Oh, okay, well, I need to do X amount of contributions every year, or keep up the cadence of work." I tend to do stuff that I'm interested in, or I think other people might be interested in, things I'm excited to talk about, and however that lands is how it lands. For me, yeah, it's something nice to have. I don't really use it I never really call myself an MVP. I don't really put it in any of my. I don't even think I've got an MVP logo on my blog. It's just something that's just nice bit of recognition, but that's it's not really going to define what I do or who I am, really.
It's good to hear. It's important to stay humble. Although one thing I'm really interested in is, as a non-MVP, is MVP Summit sounds really interesting. What does that look like? Is it how much of what's behind the curtain are you allowed to reveal, essentially?
Yeah, no, I've only ever been to one in person because, like I say, because of COVID, and then for the few years afterwards, it was either virtual or mainly virtual. So I went a couple of years ago now, I think. And that's the only one I went to in person, and yeah, it's obviously you get to walk around a Microsoft campus for a week, pretty much, and attend sessions in person rather than virtually, and obviously you get to meet people, in the corridors that you might not necessarily meet otherwise, and obviously also just mainly hanging out with a load of people that
Mhm.
through the community, but you've just never all been in the same place. So there are a lot of people that maybe are based in Asia Pacific that wouldn't be ever go probably unlikely to be at a European based event. So that's a great time to meet up. I would say it's quite tiring. There's a lot of parties and events going on outside of the main sort of summit. So I'm not really a party animal, but it was getting up at 6 a.m. and then going back to the hotel and it's like midnight and then doing it all again the next day. So it was quite a tiring experience.
Oof.
Yeah, fun and games.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I'd be up for all of the above. That sounds good. So thinking back now over your career, you've obviously seen and done a lot of things in your sort of time. Do you have a sort of lesson you've either learnt the hard way or you'd like earlier you to kind of know?
Oh, I think what we were touching on a minute ago, what we were talking about, like being maybe a little bit braver or kind of embracing something a bit quicker and rather than kind of, I am maybe a little bit cautious sometimes on things. So, whether that's adopting new products or new way of working or, maybe the next career path I should have done sooner, oh, well, let me just see rather than actually, no, let's jump in and what's the worst that can happen. So I think for me, it's maybe being a bit more uh, deliberate with what I do and not second guessing myself as much. I think the other thing is to always keep learning.
Hmm.
Like I know this event is called Experts Live, but I don't see any like, and you've probably heard this a million times before. Don't really like the word expert because and I get introduced as an expert, in my line of work, and I always cringe when people say it. So for me, I think you can always learn something, whether that's something new or something that you already work with on a daily basis. Honestly, the amount of times that you come across something like, hang on a minute, I've been doing it this way for 10 years. I didn't even know we could do it this
Mhm.
other way that saved me time, or or there's just a more efficient way of doing something. And so I would say, back to my young self would be keep up with what you do. Like you've done great stuff, but maybe yeah, don't stop, don't let off the gas as such. Just keep
Hmm.
going.
Mm. Oh, well, Lee, I obviously understand and agree with your sentiment there, but I will say I disagree with your feeling around the word expert. But for the sort of same reason, but just different opinion. I like the word expert, but doesn't what I believe it doesn't mean is that you know everything and there's nothing else to learn, and you can tell everyone else how it should be. An expert is someone who brings their own experience and
Expertise.
knowledge to a
Yeah,
conversation, but
Yeah.
we all need to be willing to listen and learn as well. Yeah, that's what Experts Live for me, really means. So
Hmm.
that everybody at those events, whether they be the conferences, the user groups, on the podcast, everybody's an expert in their own way.
Yes.
But yeah, no
Everyone
one's
has.
beyond learning and
Yeah.
improving.
yeah, yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I think it's open to interpretation what the word expert means. I guess in that
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, if someone calls me an expert, I'm like, well, now you've told the person that you've introduced me as an expert that I know everything. But they might not see expert in that same way, and that's no. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. But for me, yeah, I don't. I hate thinking that someone might think I'm a know-it-all because I'm calling myself an expert. If that makes sense.
Hmm.
So
I
I'd rather
think.
be the person that doesn't pretend to be an expert.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
you're right.
that is
The
where
humble
you'll get a
expert.
grill from us all. Jeff and I both have very strong opinions on this particular topic. So much so we did an episode on it. I think it was episode 3,
Okay.
called "Everyone versus the Tech Bros."
Oh, okay.
So if you're interested, do go and check that out if you're listening.
Okay.
Because yeah, we do have strong views. I broadly agree with Jeff in that everyone has some expertise, which is kind of the most important thing. And everything you said, Lee, about pedestals, they're not being put on one. He
Mm.
resonates with me. The other thing I wanted to sort of touch on before we run out of time is about learning. You've mentioned effectively that it's really important to keep learning. What does that look like for you? How do you kind of stay up to date? How do you stay relevant?
Yeah, so one thing that I'm really guilty of not doing is certifications and exams, and I'm actually this is something this year I'm going to try and put right and do a few more, and rather than just kind of keeping it in my head and saying I know about this uh, subject enough that I don't need to take an exam. That's not necessarily how I'm thinking, but so I think for me, um, potentially that's something I can look to do. But what I currently do is um, I read, I read a lot online. Really, you just keep abreast with what other people are talking about. Obviously things like LinkedIn are a great source if you're following the right people. You get a lot of great insight there for nothing. Obviously blog posts and social media in general, but then also going to events. Experts Live, for example. I think that's honestly that's you cannot underestimate how much you learn from those because I think what sometimes happens is you get into a bit of a vacuum on well these are the subjects that I learn about that I talk about and these are the subjects that I work on and that's what I'm going to read about but then you go to say Experts Live and there's a I mean I've got two slots here where I don't really have a session that I'm like must go to. Let me go to something about Azure Kubernetes or something that sounds interesting. I don't people keep mentioning Kubernetes, I don't know what it is. Let me go to that
Mm.
session, find out what it's about, and you're like, oh wow, this is amazing. I didn't even know it existed. And so I think events are a big part of keeping up to date. You go to a session on something like Copilot Studio, it might be completely different to the session that was delivered 12 months ago, and you pick up so much more. Wow, I didn't even know these things existed. Something like that. I think is definitely something that I try to do.
Mm.
And the thing about live events, why I love them so much, is it's a two-way conversation.
Mm.
Blogs are great, as you said, Lee, and you can watch loads of content on YouTube and follow people on socials, but that's very much a one-way conversation. Whereas, yeah, in-person events allow you to, chase that speaker down the corridor as they run away and ask them that tricky question.
Yeah, there's always that question.
Or whether it be a speaker or just somebody else, right? In the queue for coffee, you get chatting with somebody who's,
Mm.
sometimes they're in a completely different field to you, and that's interesting. Sometimes you find someone who's actually in a very similar field to you and didn't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
before. That's also like really cool. So I love that sort of interaction
The
you don't
networking
get.
is pretty amazing, and I think
Yeah,
going back to the someone chasing you down, ask you a specific question, that does happen, and where it becomes a bit of a problem is in the middle of a session when someone's obviously got a real specific need to ask you a particular
Mm.
question, and it's derailing the session that a couple of times, but obviously you don't mind helping people, but it's yeah, I think you're right that two-way street. It's not necessarily always us giving um, uh, uh, advice or giving our knowledge to others. Events. It happens the other way as well. You might learn something in your own session. That has happened before,
Mm.
where you'd be talking about a certain subject and someone put their hand up and say, "Oh, have you thought about this, or what about doing it this way?" And you're like, "Oh, I haven't, but let me have a look at that." And then you go away and you look at it and you're like, "Oh, wow, like that's amazing." It's like I didn't realize, that was possible. And goes back to the not being an expert and not knowing everything is,
yeah,
yeah.
Mm. And being humble enough to go, I don't know everything, and to listen is super important. Thank you. Some great tips. So I heard a little Teams ping there from someone, which must mean that we're getting
Oh, sorry.
close
Yeah.
to the end of this episode of Experts Live UK Community Voices. So thank you very much for listening. But before we let you go to your next call and completely wrap up, I must of course plug the conference, which is the 11th and the 12th of June, and tickets are very much on sale. So it's a 2-day event. Day one is very much focused on workshops. So as you mentioned there, Lee, 90 minutes ago, plenty of time to sort of explore a topic and understand the depths of it and ask those weird and spiky questions. And then the full 2-day affair is what, of course, I would recommend, because then you have maximum networking and engagement as well as the content. And the good news is that 2-day tickets are still not particularly expensive at £215. So they are on sale now. So do go and check them out, and look forward to meeting as many of you as possible, including yourself, Lee. I don't remember meeting you at Experts Live last year, but I was on a vendor stand last year, so I was very much tethered to the stand last year. It's a different experience.
Bit of a whirlwind, that event as well, wasn't there? There was lots of goings on.
Lots of goings on indeed. So thank you very much, Lee, for joining us and for sharing your insights, your stories and your experience. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
In our next episode, we'll be joined by Starley Hansen. Hopefully I said your name right, Starley, who is the CEO of Cloudway and also a co-pilot MVP. I think he's probably the most senior titled person we've had on this podcast so far. So that would be interesting to see if the dynamic changes there at all.
All right, we'll put our best suit and tie on, Bruce. And
Exactly. I'll do my hoodie all the way up to the top for that one, rather than just sort of halfway down. If you have any questions that you'd like me to ask to Starley or to any of our future guests, please do ping them to me or to Geoff or to @ExpertsLiveUK on LinkedIn. And of course, I'd recommend checking that out anyway, because that's the place you'll find everything that we do. Of course, the full conference, podcast episodes, and meetup type events as well, when we bring those back. And if you have enjoyed this conversation, please do like, share, subscribe, etc. Experts Live UK Community Voices for more podcasts and more episodes. So thank you very much for watching or listening, depending on your choice of podcast consumption. And we'll see you, or you'll hear us next time. Thank you very much.